Hello and welcome everyone to another exciting and informative week of Qyral training. I'm your host, Hani Sagari, founder and CEO of Qyral. And today we have a very special guest joining us. Let's give a warm welcome to the incredibly talented Dr. Jen Haley, who not only shines in the field of dermatology, but also brings to the table her deep knowledge in biology and nutrition. We're going to touch on some Ozempic, semaglutide, Wegovy, all the good stuff. We're going to touch on that. But before we immerse ourselves in today's topic, let me give you a brief introduction to Dr. Jen's impressive journey. She earned her Bachelor of Science degree from the esteemed Cornell University. Later, she pursued her medical degree at F. Edward Herbert School of Medicine, and her brilliance was evident with a plethora of academic awards she's received. After her residency, wearing the cap of an officer in the U.S. Navy, she was bestowed with the honor of serving as a VIP dermatologist consultant to the U.S. Capitol in Washington, D.C., which led to a commendation to her invaluable support to America's leaders. We salute you, Dr. Jen. Since 2009, she has been dedicatedly attending to patients in private practice, leveraging her vast experience in medical, cosmetic, and surgical dermatology. She's an active member in numerous prestigious organizations and offers her expertise to the medical boards of Arizona and Colorado. Dr. Jen also extends her knowledge as the local dermatologist for KPCW Radio. Dr. Jen, it's a privilege to have you here today. Your journey from your academic achievements, your service to the country, and continued dedication to dermatology, it's truly commendable. Thank you so much. We'd love to know what ignited your passion for dermatology and the unique approach you adopt in treatments. So I'll pass it on to you, please.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you for that warm welcome. So I'm here to serve all you today. So whatever I can do to serve you, that's my goal. Basically, I didn't want to do dermatology. I wanted to be a pediatrician. And ironically, they forced us to spend a day in dermatology. And I was like, oh, that's not even like a real doctor. Fine, it'll be easy. And I did it. And I fell in love with it because I realized the skin is the window to all of your internal health. And with my background in nutrition and then fitness as well, I've been in the fitness industry for a while. I really love the way that you can look at someone's skin and detect what's going on with all of their organs, because your skin is just an organ. It's just that it's visible. So if it's inflamed, if it's, if it has any sort of disease, we're often finding now that it's linked to other internal illnesses. So I love your approach in treating the whole person with, weight loss and helping them be their most healthy self. I don't know if I love the term weight loss, but we have to use it just like we have to use anti-aging. But at the end of the day, we just want people to be their healthiest selves so they can have the most optimized lives and do all the things that they came to Earth to do, right? So I feel like I'm part of that process by sharing knowledge at this point. So, if I can give your members the tools to succeed for themselves and their clients, then that's really all that I want.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for your service and everything. And thank you for being here today. And you touched on your skin. I mean, it's our largest organ, obviously, and it definitely shows what's going on the inside. Can you give some examples? For example, psoriasis, rosacea, like what is happening internally when you see breakouts on the outside?
Absolutely. So when I trained, we were taught acne has nothing to do with your diet. And I actually listened to my patients, people that would be clear for 4 or 5, 6 months, would go home over Christmas, over the holidays, and they'd, eat all the sugary foods, all the salt, sugar, fat that we'd like to eat in America and all over the world for that matter, but just the highly palatable foods. And they'd break out and they're like, Dr. Haley, like I ate this and this happened. And, I started to link sugar with it, all the effects of sugar on everything from aging by forming advanced glycation end products, which are basically sticky molecules that make the collagen not pliable anymore. So you get kind of stuck skin to inflammation with acne. So we know that sugar is associated with flares of acne because of the inflammatory pathways. And we also know that dairy, because it increases certain hormones like our insulin-like growth factor, or our IGF. It basically increases inflammatory markers in the body that can cause acne. It's not tried and true in everyone, but I usually have people do more of an elimination diet for a couple months. Sugar they can minimize, because what matters is your glycemic load, how much is going in the body. So if you're eating a little sugar and you're also having a salad and fiber and protein and fat, it's not going in as much as if you're having, I don't know, like just pure cane sugar, like some of the candies that we have. So we know that certain dietary things are associated with acne. Now with rosacea, what we found over the last few years, there's a little subspecialty called integrative dermatology. And they're still a little too pharmaceutical in my perspective, but I find that pharmaceuticals will often help people quickly while the lifestyle takes effect. And rosacea is highly associated with a gut imbalance. So I tell people, when you see preservatives in food, they prevent food from spoiling, right? Well, those preservatives that prevent bacteria from growing on the food also kill your healthy bacteria in your body. And we've found through so much research with the microbiome how important our microbiome is in sending signals and determining our food cravings and, causing rosacea and other sorts of conditions. There are many conditions we don't know, but typically if your skin is inflamed, your internal organs are inflamed. Psoriasis is a good example of that. A lot of people will have arthritis as well as skin plaque. So it's not just a skin disease, it's an entire inflammatory disease. People with psoriasis have higher rates of lymphoma and cardiovascular disease as well. So these things are all going together. Your skin's just representing what's going on inside. I can go on forever, but I want to be.
I love it. I love it. And the field of, the understanding of the gut microbiome and how it affects longevity. I mean, we're ultimately a longevity company. We here at Qyral, and part of the reason we're even having this training is to educate our customers, our consultants, everyone, the community, to really pass this information on to as many people as possible. And on the longevity front, what are your favorite? So how can I stay and keep my youthful, glowing skin and have it look like yours? So fabulous. Can you give us some tools? You mentioned the AGEs, and maybe you could elaborate a little bit more on that, but what are some things we can do besides the sunscreen and all these other things? What foods should we eat? What can we do to maintain our youthful looking skin?
Well, I need to preface that with, there's so much we still don't know. These are hard things to do studies on, right? So it's hard to control for one thing and do a study on just that one thing without controlling all these other variables. So often when the studies will say, oh, such and such is correlated with longevity, those people tend to have other healthy dietary habits as well. So, I'm also in the biohacking world. So I'll be 52 in less than a month. And I've been experimenting on myself my whole life. So I'm far from perfect. I definitely don't want to come off as preachy. And I don't believe that we live in an absolute world. So if you're going to have ice cream sundae, just remember, one sundae, one ice cream out of 365 days makes no difference whatsoever. It's the compound effect. Everything is the compound effect. So if I eat an extra cookie a day, in a year, that 100 calories is 10 extra pounds. That's how little we need to make a difference. So sunscreen, for example, I live in Arizona. I'm sweating to death. It's 110 degrees here. So I live in Arizona and we get a lot of sun, right? So I really recommend covering up the high real estate areas where you're going to get wrinkles, like your face, your neck, your chest, and the back of your hands every day with sunscreen before you leave the house. People will tell me, well, I'm not even in the sun. I say, well, do you drive in your car? Because we're getting sun through the windows. Do you walk to the mailbox? Do you walk your dog? Do you walk from your car to the building for at least maybe 10 minutes a day? Could you say even 10 minutes you're in the sun? And they say, oh yeah, 10 minutes easy, but that's not anything. I go, well, 10 minutes a day is over 55 hours a year. Would you go to the beach for 55 hours and not wear sunscreen? So I want everyone to just not beat themselves up for being perfect, but also realize little small tweaks in what you do can make a huge difference over time. But then we have to be patient, right? Because that's how we really prove longevity, is through patience. We don't really know, some of these researchers, they might die at 50, 60 or 70, we just don't know. But as far as for the skin, so you want me to just focus on skincare. Okay. So let's focus on skincare and then we can jump into diet a little bit. So skincare, the best things that you can do for your skin, and I'm saying this as an unbiased dermatologist because I haven't even looked at your skincare, but I have high confidence that it probably contains these ingredients. So in the morning, well, let's jump back to circadian rhythms. So our body, all we want to do is support our own body. So our body has natural circadian rhythms. And during the day, when we're awake and we have sunlight on us, which, you know, hits our pineal gland and tells our body it's daytime, we have certain metabolic processes, right? And during the day, it's protection. So we're protecting ourselves from UV radiation, from smog, from pollution, from just all sorts of, just our metabolism burning creates reactive oxygen species. So we're in a protective mode. So I always recommend at least a vitamin C and antioxidants. So we want to build our antioxidants in our skin, especially vitamin C, a high quality vitamin C that's going to do its job, and then sunscreen afterwards. There's many other layers you can do to that, but those are the basics. Now at night, when our body is resting, rejuvenating, renewing, that's our chance to renew and turn over fresh skin cells and remove the damage that happened during the day. We want to use a vitamin A product, like a retinol in particular. So those are the two key things. If I have for anyone, well, number one is sunscreen. Number two is a retinol at night. And number three is a vitamin C in the morning. And then there's many other things that you can do. And it can be a bespoke practice. If somebody's looking for hyperpigmentation or focusing on acne or, you know, wants growth factors or things like that, you can do all those sorts of things.
That's awesome, because we call it the ABC. So we have tretinoin in our product, and our Accelerate Plus product. We have tretinoin, we have niacinamide, and we have vitamin C. So we've got all three captured right there. But can you touched on cellular turnover, the cellular turnover cycle. And that's really at the heart and soul of a lot of our products, right? That, you know, turning over those cells, pushing new cells to the surface, exfoliation, and, you know, helping with growth factors to rebuild the cellular structure. So can you touch on the cellular turnover cycle and elaborate a little bit more there? And then also, yeah, share with us, thinking of there.
Sure. I like niacinamide a lot because it's anti-inflammatory. So most of us are, you know, dealing with some sort of inflammation. So I find that all skin types tolerate niacinamide. It's really beautiful for people who break out. And for those with rosacea. Now, okay, so a lot of times people think as they get older, their skin gets dry, but what's happening is our skin is not turning over as quickly. So when we're young, you know, if you're in your 20s, your skin is basically taking, I don't know, 4 to 6 weeks to get from the bottom layer of the skin, the basal layer, to the top layer where the dead skin cells are that have no nuclei. We just mean dead because they don't have nuclei, but that's what we're looking at, is the dead skin cells. And as we get older, that stretches to 2 months, sometimes even 3 months. So those skin cells are not coming off. And when they don't come off, it looks dry. So in order to stimulate fresh cells to be made, you want to exfoliate to help stimulate the process of new cell growth. So by kind of, you know, exfoliating off the top dead layer, it sends signals below along with the retinols to say, hey, let's make fresh skin. We need to make fresh skin before it all peels away, right? So that's why as we get older, our skin can look dull and it just loses that glow. So having products and that stimulate new cell growth as well as exfoliating in a non-harsh way can stimulate fresh cells. So I'm not talking about getting apricot scrubs and scrubbing your face. I prefer to do it like with enzymes and ingredients that we call chemical exfoliation, although it's not really always a chemical. It could be natural substances in earth, like Cleopatra used, you know, milk baths, because that has natural acids in it. So there's natural substances on earth that can help our skin cells break up the bonds so they can kind of easily come off without causing any trauma to the skin. If it burns or if it tears, it's not good. So the biggest thing I want people to walk away with is like intuitively listening to what your skin needs.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I love that you're saying that, because we actually started our company as where we are a personalized skincare company. And we started with a lot of alpha hydroxy, beta hydroxy acids, and we would personalize those for the individual. If they had very sensitive skin, we would work with, mandelic, malic acid. We would adjust the pH and the concentration, because all of these things matter. But we would get, and then we eventually went into the prescription grade skincare products, and we personalized that to the tretinoin and so forth. But we get a lot of people that complain, well, I'm not shedding fast enough and it's not burning, so it must not be working. Can you talk to us about the slow progression of skincare and how you have to be patient? Can you please elaborate on that?
It's such a societal thing, because I travel a lot around the world and I don't see this with other cultures as much as America. Even if you ask other cultures, like, what's the best food, they'll say there's not one, but we always want that one thing, right? Like that one thing, but everything's multifactorial, which I think is really empowering, because it gives the person the power to figure out like what works for them. Like for me, I was vegan and I never felt more unhealthy in my life. Like my body loves meat. I do really well with high fat, high meat, low carb, but that doesn't work for everyone. So just because your friend is doing X, Y, and Z and it's working for them, it doesn't mean it works for you. So at the end of the day, I give guidelines like glycolic, I like for dehydrated, older skin with brown spots. I can't do glycolic because I tend to be more rosacea and more oily. So I love salicylic acid, which is very anti-inflammatory, but there's those sort of nuances that you can kind of do as a go by. But at the end of the day, the person has to check in. Now, as far as hoping it works quicker, we always walk the line between getting the best results and then making someone miserable because they're peeling so much, right? So if you're using, the way I would explain to someone is basically, even the perfect plan will take minimum 2 months to see results, minimum. You really have to aim for 3. And I like to revisit people's skincare regimen with the seasons, because once again, cycling like we do for the skin for daily use with the circadian clock, I also like to cycle with the seasons. So every 3 months we want to tweak a little bit. So, in the winter, you're going to want to add more hydration and less exfoliation. And then as the summer gets warmer and the heat gets turned off in the house, which is very drying, you can back off a little on the hydration and add more exfoliation. Like the fall, this time of year is a great time of year to really boost exfoliation, because you want to kind of lift off the pigmentation from the summer, and we haven't reached the harsh dry time yet where people aren't going to tolerate exfoliation. So it's just coaching and patience, just like anything else, and telling people like, this is normal, this is exactly where we expect to see you, you're going to get there, we'll get you there, just be patient and stick with it. It's going back to the compound effect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you heard it from the doctor right here, right now. 3 months minimum. So be patient. It's a compounding effect. Exactly. And on that note, what do you see? What are some mistakes that people make with their skincare routines, or when they're taking care of their skin? What are some mistakes, common mistakes?
So many. Picking is probably the worst. And I do it for a living. So the way I want people to understand picking is because I see so many bad scars from picking that wouldn't have been there if they left the acne alone. Do you see a lot of acne? And you deal with a lot of acne, I'm sure.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So just think of for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction, right? So if you're squeezing something, whatever comes up is also going to explode underneath the skin, causing a huge inflammatory reaction. Anytime there's inflammation, it sends more enzymes that basically destroy collagen, and that's what causes divots. And it also can destroy pigmentation, which can leave, I could tell when someone's a picker because they'll have a white scar surrounded by a darker scar, whereas the acne itself will leave a little red spot or a discolored spot depending on your skin type, but the acne itself will not leave a white scar. That's from serious trauma. So I would say that's number one. Number two, did you have any comments on that before I proceed?
No, I love it.
Okay. Number two is I think people don't give things enough time and they move around too much. So I say pick maximum. I don't even know your guys' skin stuff. So maximum of 3 things in the morning, maximum of 3 things at night for a good 2 to 3 months, and just see how that goes and then reevaluate. I just
We
see.
have all the good stuff, by the way. You don't have to know what we have. Just know that it's everything that a dermatologist would recommend, and we personalize it for the individual. So
It
from
sounds
all
like
the
it.
extracts, the growth factors, we got everyone covered.
I want them.
Yeah, no. You go ahead, keep going.
I was just gonna say I want some. I'm already like,
Oh,
I'll check it out after.
we're hooking you up, don't you worry.
So I feel like people jump around too much. It's just that impatience. And the thing is often people have been dealing with acne for 10 years, or, it's taken 10 years for them to come in for their wrinkles and their brown spot. What's just being patient for another 3 months? So it's just being a little, I hate to use the word ADD, but it's like we're ADD. We just want to like try different things all the time, and confused skin is angry skin. And when skin is angry, inflamed, it doesn't do anyone good. And then another thing I see is that people use too much product. So especially with retinol, more is not better and more is more irritating. So the way retinol and vitamin A's work, it's not like a moisturizer or a sunscreen where you have to cover every skin cell. It works by cell signaling. So we're trusting the body, right? We're just giving the body the tools to do the work it wants to do to renew ourselves. So by putting more on the face, especially letting it sit in the creases of the nose and around the mouth, it can cause dryness and irritation. So those are probably the top 3 things I see very routinely. Oh, one more thing. Okay, so sunscreen. This is just after checking like hundreds of thousands of bodies over the years, is I see a lot of skin cancers, especially in men, like right in front of the ear and right on the neck. And yeah, and in women, I'll see a lot of brown spots like on the periphery of the face. So I want you to treat this as your face, like from the base of your neck, your chest to your forehead. And basically when you put your sunscreen on, go from outside to inside, because we're not going to make sure this isn't covered, but people take a little bit and they put it on the center of their face and just sort of smash it out. And the outside's not covered, and sunscreen isn't going to work properly if it doesn't have complete coverage. So outside to inside for the sunscreen. And then something that I do is I treat my eyes as well as my face. People are afraid to touch their eyes, and our body does this thing called hormesis. So like all of are you familiar with hormesis?
Yes, of course, please.
Okay, good. Yeah,
a little bit of stress does the body good. Go ahead.
Yeah, a little bit of stress. So a machine like a car will break down the more you use it. It'll wear out. Well, the human body is the complete opposite. If you don't use it, you lose it. So you go to the gym, your muscles get stronger, your bones get stronger, right? If you stimulate the skin, whether, when you're washing, don't be afraid to touch yourself, right? And there's a very famous dermatologist who I'm friends with, and he goes, boxers never have wrinkles because they get punched in the face. I'm like, well, that's a little extreme, but I find that people are afraid to touch their eyes, and I just don't see the reason why you should be afraid to touch your eyes. Don't scrub them, but put them stuff on, put your cream on. Massage your skin when you're doing that's moving in lymphatics, and the lymphatics are cleaning things out. So yeah, that's another thing.
Yeah, well, on that topic of under eye wrinkles, I find that that's probably the first place you could like the aging of the skin starts to show, because it's such a thin area, right? What can you do for under eye wrinkles? I mean, if tretinoin, can you use tretinoin under eyes? And if not, what should you do for under eye wrinkles? We get this a lot.
I recommend retinol, and I have for 20 years now recommended it right up to the eyelid margin. Don't get it in your eyes, but you're fine. It's vitamin A. You're fine putting it up to your eyelid margin. So if you want the skin of your eyes to look the same as the rest of your face, you need to treat it the same. And then just make sure you have sunscreen. And then, there's things like Botox and PRF, and, there's procedures you can do in the office, but it's really, if you want to focus on prevention, you've got to start with the basics. And then once they're there, then there's treatments you can do. But it's this thinnest skin in the body. So it's going to show aging the first, especially men. Men are not great skincare consumers, but that's the first place they always notice is the eyes.
Yeah, well, we get a lot of, the recommendation is, avoid the eye area with tretinoin. And I think that's a misconception. It's like avoid the eye area, but make sure you get the under eye. Don't forget that. So you're telling us, you've
I
heard
use it on my eyelids as well.
recommends it, right? You recommend that we use tretinoin under eyes, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I can't give medical advice, obviously, but I do. I've always recommended using retinol or tretinoin to the eyelid margin. The thing is you're not going to be able to do it every night because the skin's thin. There's no sebaceous, there's no oil glands there. So every night is going to make you peeling. So like when I was a resident in the 90s, I was peeling for 2 years, basically, from using it. And I mean, eventually my skin acclimated, but I mean, 3 times a week, the studies show if you use tretinoin every night or 3 times a week, you're at the same point at 6 months. You just get there quicker if you use every night, but at 6 months, you have absolute great collagen production.
Oh, that's so good to know. Thank you for sharing that tip. That's really good advice. Now, as far as on that topic of peeling, you said you were peeling for 2 years straight. Some people stop peeling and they think the product stopped working. What's the take on that? Why does the skin stop peeling, and is it still working? Maybe you could talk to us about that.
Absolutely still working. I mean, the goal is to get you to a point where you're not peeling anymore. I mean, as long as your skin doesn't look dull, basically those dead skin cell layers have lifted off. So that's why you're not peeling. There's nothing left to peel off. You got them off, success. So
using the minimal dose of tretinoin, let's call it, I mean, we compound a variety of doses and we'll adjust it for the individual. When should they go up? I know you can't give medical advice, but when should they go up? Or do you recommend staying on a lower dose for a longer period of time? When do you recommend titrating up? What's your recommendation there?
Everyone's different. I mean, I've never been able to get, so you compound the tretinoins, okay, the prescription strength. So, I mean, I've personally never been able to get past 0.25%. And I feel like I'd love to go stronger. I just can't. So what a general rule that I recommend for people is I'll have them start with a 0.25%, which is, the lowest. And then, I'm sorry, 0.025%, which is the lowest. And then I'll have them do that 3 times a week for 2 weeks. So it's the first step after you cleanse at night. You always want to use it at night. And it's the first step that you apply at night. And then you can use moisturizer after, although there have been studies showing you could use a moisturizer before and it does not dilute it. But you want to use a moisturizer at the same time because I think it helps prevent some of just the harsh burning kind of peeling that we see, even if it's a hyaluronic acid or a really light moisturizer. So you basically take a pea-sized amount. So I have people take a pea-sized amount, dot, 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 and rub it in, and then get it out of the creases. Okay. So rub it in just with that pea-sized amount to their whole face 3 times a week for 2 weeks. If they're not having any peeling or issues, then I have them go to 4 times a week or every other night for another 2 weeks. If they're not having any issues, then they'll go to 5 times a week after 2 weeks. So every 2 weeks we're graduating. There's many ways to do this. I do it that way because I don't like to get a lot of calls saying, I'm peeling. There's some people like Dr. Obagi, he's like, do it every night, ride through the peeling for 4 weeks, 6 weeks, and too bad, you just have to get through it, So if you want to do that, but I find most of my clients they're in the public sector and they don't want to look like they're having peeling skin. So I like it that way. So you start with the lowest strength and you graduate. And then when you're successfully tolerating the lowest strength every single night for 2 to 4 weeks, then you can go to the next strength and so on. And that's how we do it. And very rarely do people need, the highest strength. I find that my African-American patients, they tend to have a thicker dermis and they need a higher strength, especially to help with the pigmentation. But, most fair-skinned patients do just fine with the lower percentages. It's very, very personalized, and more is not better. We need to get out of that mindset. It's like there's something for everyone. More is not better. What's right is right for you, not right for them.
Exactly. Thank you for mentioning that. I like to say it's like roast. You could put it in the oven and you could have it on a lower temperature and then just let it cook and it'll be juicy on the inside, and or you could just turn up the heat and yeah, you'll cook the roast, but it'll be dry. It might not be as juicy. So it's like more is not necessarily better, and take your time, go slow. It's still working. Got to be patient. I think we're as a society, we're like, we want it now, immediately. Let's go.
Well, it's hard. It's hard with all the ads out there too, showing, oh, 3 weeks. That does not happen in 3 weeks. I can guarantee it. So
yeah. Reverse aging overnight. How many times have you heard that one in an ad? Oh my gosh.
well, that's a fun trick. If you put moisturizer on anything, it's going to plump up the skin and the wrinkles are going to look smaller. So like, I don't know, if I had some event or something, I would take a little like spray, like water spray, some mineral spray, and then a little hyaluronic acid and just put it on, you know, your cheekbones and your here. I should have done that.
Oh, do you have any other hacks for us? Can you give us some hacks?
And it works for lips too. So hyaluronic acid basically holds onto water. So you want to put water on first. So use it when you first get out of the shower, or I like to spray the face, especially traveling. I travel a lot and my skin gets dehydrated. So before you get on the plane or when you're on the plane, you know, don't spray anyone next to you. That's not a good way to make friends, and just spray and then seal it in, you know, with a moisturizer or hyaluronic acid. That's what I like.
Well, we have that too in our products. We have that, but you heard it. Okay, that's a nice trick. Come out of the shower while your skin's still damp and then apply the moisturizer on top. Let's shift gears a little bit. I mean, we covered the I age well of your skin. We covered that instead of anti-aging. I'm going to say
rejuvenation.
Yeah, rejuvenating of your skin. Let's talk a little about melasma and hyperpigmentation. Our treatment for that is obviously hydroquinone. We have all different variations of it, but we cycle patients through hydroquinone and then azelaic acid. Can you talk to us? What are the causes of hyperpigmentation, melasma? What happens? How does hydroquinone work? Let's get into that.
This is great because I just got into an argument at a recent peptide congress. Not really an argument because you could tell I'm not argumentative, but one of the guys there, he's like, melasma is an aging condition. I'm like, it's not. The women that are postmenopausal don't have melasma. It's a hormonal condition. So melasma, do most people know what melasma is? Do I need to?
You could explain.
Okay. So melasma basically is when you look like you have like brown patches, and I've struggled with this myself because I'm half Spanish. So tends to affect more medium skin tones. The people who struggle with brown spots, like post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation, when you get a pimple or a scratch or something and it leaves a brown spot, are usually more medium and darker skin tone, not fair skin tone. Fair skin tone tends to get like a red area, whereas medium and dark skin tone tend to get brown spots after any inflammation. So like after the pimple goes away, they're left with a brown spot, which is sometimes more troublesome than the pimple. But for some reason, we find like Hispanics and Asians are more prone to melasma, and I'm Hispanic. So I had it after my children. And basically it looks like brown patches on the forehead, on the cheeks, on the upper lip. It could look like a mustache even. And it's associated with boosts in estrogen, like during pregnancy or if someone takes oral contraceptives. And unfortunately, if you take away the oral contraceptives, the melasma sticks around a little bit longer. And we don't really know all of the reasons why it's there. I've seen it in men as well, like on the arms. So we don't know all the reasons, but we definitely know it's very estrogen driven and very light driven. And one of the mistakes I made, I used to live in Hawaii, and I had a lot of patients with melasma there. It was very, very hard to treat because the sun is always out. But then we realized that it's also heat sensitive. So if you avoid the sun 24/7, but you're hot all the time, or you're cooking over flames, or you're doing hot yoga, you're not going to get rid of your melasma.
Interesting. Wow. I didn't know that.
This is melasma is a passion of mine because I know it's really hard for women to deal with. And I mean, men too, but I've seen it maybe twice in 20 years in men. It's not very common. And who knows, it could have been misdiagnosed. Even, like what we think isn't always what we think. But it's mostly in women. It usually is not present after menopause. So it's not an aging condition. It's a hormonally driven condition. So, I mean, after pregnancy, you can't do anything about pregnancy, obviously, but after pregnancy, I love cycling hydroquinone. There's often, I tend to be more natural and like natural remedies. And there's always the pool of people out there, poo-pooing hydroquinone, but it's really the best thing we have to treat these very difficult pigment conditions, because melasma is not something I can just laser off. So whereas if someone has brown spots, like age spots on the back of their hands, it's super easy. 1 or 2 laser treatments, bam, it's gone, right? Because it's a very stable pigmentation. So lentigines, lentigo, sunspots, age spots are all the same things. They are stable pigmentation. They develop over many years. They're just little clumps of pigment cells under the skin, and you could laser them off. Now, melasma is a dynamic pigmentation. So post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation, which happens after you get acne or a scratch or some sort of a rash, and melasma, they're dynamic. So basically what happens is anytime there's inflammation, the pigment cells show up. They're like, "Ooh, there's a party." And they show up, and then the party's over and they stick around, like people who, are not supposed to be there. So they still stick around afterwards. So it's the more you do, the more you cause inflammation in the skin, the worse those conditions will get. So if I laser melasma, I can make it 10 times worse. And I've seen a lot of lawsuits for this. So it's something you want to be delicate with, which is why I like skincare, maybe some light chemical peels, but you can't be aggressive with it because you make it worse. So hydroquinone, I really like it, but we don't want to use it longer than 60 days and then take a break. Is that what your protocol is?
Yeah. Yep. We do 3 cycles, which is roughly around the same. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't see exogenous ochronosis, which is like a deposition of a pigmentation, for people that cycle it like that. I really don't. But in conjunction with using the skin protocol, the lightening protocol, you really want to make sure they're using a tinted sunscreen. So tinted sunscreen has iron oxides in it, which block all the rays, like the visible light, the light from the computer. All of these things will stimulate melasma, unfortunately. And then I have them cut out the hot yoga and not cook over hot stove all the time or sit near a fireplace until we get it under control. So my melasma went away about 7 years ago, and I'm like, I don't get it anymore. Like I just don't get it anymore. So it's not like it's a permanent thing where you're never going to be able to do yoga again, or you're never going to be able to do these things. You will. We just have to reprogram those melanocytes. So once we reprogram and we reset the newness of your skin, it's not going to be as sensitive to those things. So I hope that makes sense. It's a lot.
Totally. Can you quickly explain why we have to cycle between azelaic acid for people? Because we get this question a lot, like, "Oh my God, my formula changed. I was so happy with it. Why are you guys taking me off the hydroquinone and putting me on what we do azelaic acid?" But yeah, can you explain that, please?
You do 4% hydroquinone?
We have a variation. We even have a hydroquinone mixture with tretinoin for really extreme cases, but we have it with hydrocortisone even to reduce inflammation. So we have all different, again, it's all compounded and personalized for the individual's needs, but
that's great. Yeah. So basically, and even with kojic acid, sometimes I like it. So, although it could be kind of gritty, but, so basically hydroquinone.
Sorry, just a quick comment on kojic acid. A lot of compounders don't want to use it anymore. They're like, "Nope, it has a really bad rep. We're not using it." So we had to remove our kojic acid from our formula.
Why don't they like it?
I don't know. There's something with kojic acid going on. We had to remove it from our formulation because I'm a fan, but we were told that we have to remove it. So.
I'm curious. Okay, maybe you could tell me offline, because I haven't received that memo yet. That's good to know. Yeah. So, but either way, all those things are supportive. So the main role is hydroquinone, because it's the only thing that kills melanocytes. So with melasma, you have too many melanocytes, which are the pigment producing cells. So we do want to lighten, we do want to kill off some of them. It's not going to make you turn white or anything like that and lose all of your pigmentation. It's just going to abate some of the hyperpigmentation. So for people who use hydroquinone for long periods of time, they can develop something called cutaneous ochronosis. We like to use these long words to sound smart in dermatology, but basically it's kind of a permanent darkening of the skin. I'll leave it at that. It's a permanent darkening of the skin that nothing will work for. So I've seen patients over the years that usually will get lightening creams overseas, and they'll use hydroquinone for, 8% even for like 10 years. And it doesn't look so much like melasma anymore. It almost looks like a bluish black. It looks darker. It's a darker color than melasma, and it's not reversible. So in order to prevent from getting ochronosis, you want to cycle the hydroquinone. So 60 days on, maybe 30 days to 60 days off, and then you could do another cycle. And it actually works more effectively that way when you pulse therapy it. Sort of like when you're dieting, I've done a number of fitness competitions, and like your metabolism just starts to slow down. So when you add in like one feed day, when you have like a little bit of extra food that day, your metabolism bounces up, and then the diet becomes more effective over time. And the same thing with the hydroquinone. When you pulse it and then take a break, you might feel like you backtracked a little bit, but then your progress is going to be better than months 4 and 5.
Well, thank you for that recommendation. Quickly, if we could just touch on acne just a little bit. Can you tell us and differentiate between teenage acne and adult acne? What causes each type? Can you just talk to us a little about acne?
Yeah. Okay. Oh, you're hitting all my favorite topics. Okay. So basically, when I look at someone's skin, so I could see 2 teenagers and they'll be siblings and they'll get completely different treatment plans. So it's not like, what can I do for my acne? There's never one answer for anyone. So we look at acne, basically, teenage acne, it's caused by plugging of the oil glands, excess oil from increased hormone levels during the teenage years, and then the plugged up skin cells in the oil glands can rupture, and that can make inflammation. So I look at comedones, which are blackheads and whiteheads. That's the bumpy type of acne that's not inflamed, and then inflammatory acne in those areas. And it, happens anywhere there's oil glands. So face, chest, back, shoulders. That's teenage acne. And based on what type of acne is prominent will determine how I treat them, basically. Do you want to go deeper into that or not?
No, I think that's good. Let's talk a little about adult acne.
Yeah. So I see a ton of adult acne, and this is an environmental thing. So basically more in women. And what we see is deep cystic pimples without blackheads on the jaw and the chin. Okay. The lower half of the face. And they last forever. They last like a month. Don't pick them. Nothing will come out. No pus, nothing will come out. And they're painful. So very, very, very different pattern in the 20s, 30s, 40s, and even 50s. I see women with this. And it's treated very differently. I do a lot of lifestyle stuff with this.
Please, can we dive into that a little bit? Because I get it,
Yeah.
So times. So tell us a little bit more.
We've got to cut out the estrogen, the hormone disruptors. So we have all these things in our environment. So when I was training in the 90s and early 2000s, I was like, why? I was the only woman in my program. So I saw every woman with acne because I want to see the woman doctor, right? And I said, why are there so many women in their 40s and 30s with acne? I thought you're supposed to outgrow this. And I asked my director, who is a good 30 years older than me, and he said he never saw it. So this isn't something that people saw in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. So my brain, going back to just my background, is like something's going on in our environment, and it always amazes me because when we go to the doctor, when we get sick, we want a medicine. Where do we put the medicine? We put it in our mouth. Well, we put food in our mouth. That's medicine too. So like anything we put in our mouth or near our mouth or goes inside of our body is going to affect us either positively or negatively, right? So that's why like I carry metal containers around. I'd never drink out of plastic because plastic is poison. It is a horrible endocrine disruptor. Even BPA free, any plastic is horrible. It messes with the hormones. It sends signals to the body that act like hormones, but they don't function properly as hormones. And it causes things like hair where you don't want it, acne where you don't want it. Men have little Buddha bellies from the liver being overtaxed nowadays from our body trying to process so many toxins. So it's really affecting us in a bad way. So I have people avoid endocrine disruptors. So plastics, number one. And unfortunately, like my thing is I love coffee and going to like coffee shops, and the inside of the cup is lined with plastic. So you put the hot drink in there and now you're drinking plastic, not just from the top, but it's also lining the cup. So just think twice about that. And receipts at the store have phthalates in them. So I don't touch those receipts at the store. I feel bad for the people that do. I'm like, no, don't, so don't touch the receipt.
Talks about this receipts. Holy moly. This is the first time I'm hearing it. Wow.
And it's worse with like, if you do hand sanitizer and then touch the receipt, it gets absorbed more. They've measured levels inside the body. So these things, going back to the compound effect, they add up, and we're seeing so like over 300 chemicals in umbilical cords now, in umbilical cord blood that's feeding babies that we weren't seeing years ago. And then pesticides. So trying to eat organic as much as you can. I know it could be expensive. So I have people go to ewg.org and they look up like the dirty dozen, which are basically the dirtiest things. So like things like blueberries, it's better not to eat them if they're not organic. They should be organic. And then, so the plastics.
Just quickly, general rule on organic produce. If you had to choose which ones would you recommend? Like, absolutely, please make sure they're organic.
Yeah.
I love this question.
I know. For me, I mean, I'm thinking about the foods I actually eat. So apples, like broccoli, I don't care so much. Apples, yes. Bananas doesn't matter. Avocados doesn't matter. Every berry, I won't touch a berry if it's not organic, because berries are going to absorb. So if it has a skin on it, like a papaya or a mango or a banana, or an avocado, you're okay. It's not that big of a deal. I still try to support it. If it's a little bit more, I'll buy the organic to support the farms, but those things are fine. But things like peaches or nectarines or berries, no. And that's the other thing. We shouldn't be eating fruit all year. Fruit is meant to make us fat so we can survive winter. It's, like apes eat a lot of fruit in the, in the summer so they could survive the winter. So we're not meant to eat fruit all year long. So I'm really big on cycling skincare, cycling supplements, cycling food. And the more you become in tune with your body, the more you'll feel what feels right for you.
Oh, I love it. Thank you. I know we have just a few minutes left, and I really, really want to touch on the semaglutide, tirzepatide, the GLP-1 GIPs. By the way, you mentioned you were at a peptide conference. I think I was at the same one, the Peptide World Congress.
You hear him say that? I was like,
yes, I think we were there. We were at the same conference.
How in Malibu. Yeah.
Yes, in Malibu. Exactly. Mm-hmm. So exciting. So you mentioned, that, there's certain things that happen to your skin when you are on semaglutide, tirzepatide, and we have thousands of customers on these products. They're probably listening. So what tips do you have? What will happen to their skin? Let's talk about Ozempic face. I really want to touch on that. Ozempic butt, maybe, if you could also touch on that, but please, let's dive into the world of GIPs.
Yeah. I mean, there's such a polarized world on these products, some people hate them, some people love them. And like, I just feel like I'm a fan of anything that empowers people to like go in a direction. And sometimes we just all need our own little auto boost, so I do like semaglutide and I like these products, but I like them to be used in a way where people are not going to use it as a crutch, right? Like it's going to get them boosted to kind of start on the right plan. And I hope everyone who's listening understands the importance of muscle. So muscle is your metabolic currency. And the more muscle you have, the higher your metabolism. So like I lose weight when I only weightlift and I don't do cardio. Mentally, I need the cardio, but like weightlifting and resistance training and building muscle is so important. And going back to the semaglutide, but we've gotten so good in dermatology with cosmetic procedures that I can make someone's face look young, neck look young, even their hands look young, but I could always tell the age of someone by looking at their butt. Because once you're after 40, you usually have a flatter butt. It's just not as perky, right? So getting in the gym and doing those squats and doing heavy resistance training is so huge. And it's going to help you have success with these GLP-1 agonists because you're going to retain your muscle, which is going to be your metabolism. So you don't have to stay on these forever, So I find that the people that do succeed with the weight loss are the ones getting to the gym. They're the ones getting to the gym and doing resistance training. And basically the drooping that we're seeing in the face and the drooping that we're seeing in the tush and everywhere is because it's the rapidity of weight loss. So like our skin, we talked about earlier, it takes about 2 to 3 months to turn over. And when you lose weight 2 pounds a week, your skin can turn over. So it's basically making new skin and not looking as saggy. And over time, it's less effective. As you know, if you lose weight in your 20s versus your 50s, it's not going to be the same thing. But in general, when you lose very quickly, your skin just hasn't caught up and it hasn't been able to turn over, and you're just going to be real saggy. So it's not the product, it's the rapidity of the weight loss. If anyone lost weight that quickly, they would be getting the same thing happening.
And how about hair loss? We're getting a lot of people that are complaining about hair loss during their weight loss journey. I've lost quite a significant amount of weight twice in my life, and my hair has been part of the process of going. So what can we do about that? Why do we lose hair, and what can we do about it?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of reasons we lose hair. So there's a lot, but in general, I mean, if you're going through a stressor, and you're not having nutrients to rebuild hair, you're not going to have hair. So from an evolutionary perspective, hair is a low priority for survival. So if you don't have enough nutrients coming in, or you're having any sort of a stressor in your life, hair will just shed. Even after pregnancy, we get telogen and effluvium shedding. So I want people to focus on the quality of their food. So it's not so much the quantity, but it's the quality. And the way we farm our food now does not have the nutrients in it that it used to have. So like, I love microgreens because I don't like to chew all day and eat a lot of vegetables. So one little microgreen is equal to like a whole broccoli. So if you eat microgreens, you're getting more nutrients. So I have spirulina and I like chlorella. There's a company called Energy Bits, and you just swallow them, and they're so highly nutritious. So look at food as like, how little calories can I eat and how much nutrition can I get? Because our food is the opposite. Like, I mean, I love bread, I love avocado toast, but when I look at the bread, I'm like, that doesn't really have anything in it, that's going to be feeding my body. And our hair is not going to grow without the building blocks. So it's going to fall out from the stress of losing weight, or fall out from any stress, surgery or anything. And it's not going to rebuild without the building blocks.
Okay. And how crucial is protein in that process?
I believe your entire day should be revolved around protein. So I aim for about 120 grams of protein a day. So whatever you want for your ideal body weight, that's how much protein you should get. And studies have shown that your satiety, your fullness, is determined basically by how much protein you have. So if you're going to have, just say you're hungry and you decide to eat, I don't know, like a whole bunch of bread, like bread they serve at the basket, at restaurants, you're going to still be hungry until you get that protein in your body. So it's your first meal. If you're an intermittent faster, whatever your first meal is, aim for like 30 to 50 grams of protein, and then your last meal, and then you can have a little bit more during the day, just depending on your size. But yeah, I love protein. I think protein is very important, and people metabolize protein differently. My body does well with meat. Some people do very well with vegan sources. So it just depends on your microbes in your gut. Some microbes digest vegetable protein and turn it into usable form. Some people not so much. And that's why I find a lot of vegans, and I don't want to turn anyone away here because I was vegan, but a lot of vegans will do well for 6 months because they'll eliminate a lot of the junk in their diet. And then at 6 months, now they're not having the building blocks and they're losing their hair and their skin sallow and things like that. So, maybe something we can cycle.
I love that. And on the topic of protein, there's a lot of collagen creams and collagen powders, and there's a lot of, this isn't a product that we have, powders and so forth, but what is your take on collagen powders and, for skin rejuvenation, and what's your take on that?
Yeah, I get that. I get asked this all the time. So with collagen, if you're going to choose collagen, get 100% grass-fed, because it can be contaminated. So 100% grass-fed, I like bovine collagen. And it's shown in multiple studies that it can help with skin hydration, improving the skin barrier. And we know that if skin's hydrated more, it's going to look less wrinkled. So I don't think collagen is a waste of money. I'll put it to you that way. Do I think it's not in my top 5 supplements? It's probably in my top 15 supplements for people. And I don't think it's harmful. I add it to my coffee in the morning with creatine every day and a little electrolytes. For me, that's a great way to start the day. And I was doing bulletproof, but it did not work for me. My blood wasn't good and I wasn't doing well. So once again, it works for some people. It doesn't work for everyone. So you have to play with these things. And I think the collagen can help a little bit with the ligaments as we age as well. So with athletic performance and with ligaments, just make sure it's sourced properly. And it doesn't count as a complete protein. So the grams of collagen don't go towards your total protein amounts because it's not complete.
There you go. And at the peptide conference we were at, Dr. Seeds, who puts on the conference, he wrapped up his keynote speech was on hydration and the importance of hydration, how your cells need to be hydrated. So tell us just one piece of advice about hydrating and tell us.
I didn't hear it.
And that's it. That was his keynote. How important the importance of hydration and just all your metabolic pathways and how it's actually involved in the start of cardiovascular disease, the start of diabetes, how hydration plays a crucial role in that because your body pulls water from different cells to come. So hydration, as a dermatologist, do you recommend, what do you recommend? How many ounces of water should we be?
No, I drink all the time. I think I have psychogenic drinking behavior, but I basically, if your urine's not clear, I recommend drinking more because I'm a huge fan of the lymphatic system. And like, if you're someone who struggles with puffy eyes, even when you get up in the morning, do like 30 jumping jacks, and that will pound your lymphatics to start moving through the day. And your lymphatics are what kind of like gets rid of the puffiness in places you don't want, but it's not going to move. It's going to be like glue if you're dehydrated. So you want things to kind of flow like a river that's not filled with mud, and if you're not drinking enough and you're not hydrated enough. Now it's a matter of, there's so many things that are involved in actually getting the fluid where it needs to go, as far as being properly like having a good amount of minerals and, and those sort of things. So that's where it gets complicated, and you can add in things like fulvic acid and humic acid and things that we're just not getting from our soil. So, it gets kind of complicated nowadays because we're basically getting our food from soil poor, minerals poor soil. So if you can garden yourself or live somewhere like where there's volcanic activity, like you're going to have great rich soil, but we don't really have that in most everyday life. I don't. So,
well, Dr. Jen, I really hope you can come back. This was such a fun talk, so informative. I loved all your tips, tricks. Thank you so much for joining us. This is really exciting. And we have to pick this up because there's a bunch of questions that came in that I didn't even answer, but we would love to have you back. Thank you for your time. And thank you everyone for joining us for another exciting week of Qyral training. Thank you, Dr. Jen. Thank you.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
Of course. Have a great one, everyone. That wraps it. Take care. Bye-bye.